Hello guys, welcome to the fiction series. Today we are gonna see, what if Naruto was escaped from the Hokage's hat? Part 1. If you want more awesome fan fiction like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. So without wasting any time, let's get into the video. One tiny little change. It is often said, for the want of a nail, the battle could be lost. While overly simplistic, this particular nugget of truth was surprisingly accurate. For example, Chidori, Rasengan. We have all seen this battle once or 1,000 times. Naruto, hopped up on demonic chakra, faces an evil Sasuke with wings. Naruto, not wanting to actually hurt the first one he saw as a brother, aims high, while the crazy Sharingan user aims low, seeking a death blow. This perfect moment of understanding between two orphans brings a tear to your eye, doesn't it? Now, watch what happens if Naruto's aim slips just a little bit. Arghh. The pain was incredible. Demonic chakra was tearing him apart, ripping his muscles and organs into shreds. But if he held back, even for an instant, Sasuke's strike would kill him. He couldn't die, he wouldn't die just yet. Suddenly, Naruto's focus, which had been concentrated on the first perfect Rasengan he had ever formed fighting Sasuke's black Chidori, seemed to expand, causing him to notice the hand-like wings that Sasuke's curse mark had generated. Wings that, if hit just so, would. Sasuke. Naruto cried out. Aiming high, not for the forehead protector which would have disproved Sasuke's taunts earlier, but for that monstrous left wing. The Rasengan, infused with demonic chakra and Naruto's willpower, shredded the offending appendage, sending the Uchiha rocketing downward with the force of a meteor. The Chidori, aimed for his center mass, instead nearly took out half the muscles in Naruto's right arm. Crying out in pain, both genin fell, their destinies now left in the hands of fate. And a lazy jonin who happened to be on time for once, if only barely. Seeing his two students, Kakashi nearly wept with joy. They were both still alive. These two were among the first people he had started to care for in years. He couldn't lose them now. Looking over their respective injuries, however, the dog summoner winced. The impact had badly dazed the Uchiha, who had a nasty burn festering on his back. The Kakashi's sorrow, the containment seal for the cursed mark, was also badly damaged. But Naruto. If it wasn't for his demonic healing and Lady Tsunade, this sort of wound could end a ninja's career. Half of the muscles in his bicep were clearly seared off, and the blood was beginning to pool badly. Shaking his head in remorse, Kakashi formed a shadow clone and grabbed his two wayward students, starting back for Konoha. Phasing out of the ground, Zetsu smirked collectively. Isn't that interesting? Kakashi, running as quickly as possible through the trees, was coming upon an uncomfortable conclusion. Naruto might not survive the trip back. Clearly, the battle had drained all of his chakra, but the lack of demonic healing was even more worrisome. The one-eyed ninja had even begun to believe that the kid might become immortal at his current rate of growth. Unfortunately, the lowered blood pressure and body temperature seemed to counteract such claims. How could he look at himself in the mirror as a sensei if his personal technique ended the poor boy's life? Luckily for the brooding man, help had arrived. Jonin Kakashi. What is the status of Genin's Uzumaki Naruto and Uchiha Sasuke? Sighing in contentment, Tsunade headed out to inform the interested parties about Choji's survival. That Nara medicine book had been a godsend, saving her precious time and effort in re-stabilizing the poor boy's metabolism and biosystem. Hopefully with a few weeks of recovery and 3 days of solid bed rest, he'd be fit as a fiddle for active duty. Seeing the nervous Chunin chatting with the Suna Wind Mistress, a small smirk came to her lips. Ah, young flirting. Humming to attention, Shikamaru started to speak, only to be cut off by the Hokage. Don't worry Shikamaru, Choji will be fine. Kiba and Akamaru are in recovery, and I am waiting to hear from Shizune about Niji. Lady Tsunade. Looking over at her brunette apprentice, the Hokage quirked an eyebrow. Yes, Shizune. Smiling, the exhausted medic ninja gave a weary thumb up. Hyuga Niji is out of surgery. According to our examinations, the cellular graft is holding, and he should make a full recovery. Smiling at the additional good news, the blondie was about to ask for more information when one of the field medics that she had dispatched after the Suna ninja ran over, frantic. Hokage-sama, we need you now. A level 3 critical wound, with nearly 1.5 hours of duration, is in need of treatment. Eyes widening, Tsunade ran after the man, followed by a weary Shizune, who managed to survive a wound that bad for over an hour. Not even pausing, the man replied Genin Uzumaki Naruto, in the process of successfully apprehending Genin Uchiha Sasuke. The man was lucky to dodge out of the way as the two medics suddenly tripled in speed. Seeing the boy in Kakashi's arms, blood seeping out of a makeshift bandage and pooling beneath the man, Tsunade snapped out orders like a machine gun. Let him into her too. I want Team Theta and Team Quattros available for cellular regeneration surgery, stat. Shizune. You have just completed a level 2 regeneration surgery and are unfit for another so soon. Look after the Uchiha, patch him up if you can, and get that bastard Jiraiya down here. I am going to want this punk's chakra sealed within the next 2 hours. Move it. Running to complete their duties, no one bothered to see the sorrow in Kakashi's lone eye. Obito, I have truly failed you. Now one would think that this would be the beginning of a happy ending, nah. Not if the Council of Advisors had anything to say about it. Amura, Kaharu and Danzu had been a part of the Konoha infrastructure for a long time and as such, controlled numerous aspects of the military and civilian cultures within the village. And with the third Hokage gone, the one man who knew their methods and minds unlike anyone else, they had been able to gather an unprecedented amount of control. Not that the fifth had realized it just yet. Sighing, Hamura palmed his face in frustration. This development could be cataclysmic for our village. Nodding her head in agreement, Kaharu patted her old friend on the back. We were hoping that the Uchiha clan would be removed completely, besides Itachi, and restarted as loyal to the village. Instead, that fool allowed his brother to escape, making the brat the symbol of the Uchiha image within Konoha. This defection will permanently tarnish the clan and might bring Itachi's wrath upon our heads. Danzu smirked, tapping his cane thoughtfully. But the truth is, the container managed to defeat the Uchiha, showing that his potential as a weapon is there for the taking. If properly trained, he could be our ace against Itachi's vengeance. Snorting, Kaharu shook her head. That weakling beat Itachi. There is no way that such a loser of a ninja could possibly defeat the strongest Uchiha in decades, probably since Madara. Looking over his mission reports and general performance, the Kyuubi chakra is the only thing pushing him forward. Something that the strongest of the Uchiha can counter, which we must assume Itachi qualifies as. Amura looked uncertain. I am not so sure. There are indicators that his education was hindered by elements in the academy. Perhaps with proper tutoring. Glaring at her old comrade, Kaharu rebutted easily. That would take time that we do not have. No matter what he has suffered, Uzumaki Naruto became a necessary scapegoat and sacrifice to appease the masses of Konoha. Making him a scapegoat here might buy us some time. This time Danzu snorted, it won't be that easy. In Inuzuka, Nara, Yamanaka, Akimichi, Yugawa, all of these clans are beginning to show interest in the boy. Not to mention the last two loyal Sannin. If we simply try to make him the scapegoat of the Uchiha's injuries or some rubbish like that, the clan heirs might bring him needed political, if not popular, support. That sort of division is not something that Konoha needs, especially after the attack from Orochimaru. Kaharu sighed, spreading her hands in defeat. Then what would you suggest? About to continue the debate, Danzu was interrupted by the appearance of a loyal supporter. What is it, Sai? Face covered with a blank mask, the young root member held forward a scroll to his master. A missive from the capital, Danzu-sama. Taking the scroll and dismissing the boy, Danzu reviewed its contents. Then smirked. Looking at his compatriots, Danzu asked a question that would change the face of Konoha forever. That last report from Jiraiya said something about Akatsuki, did it not? She waited in front of the exam room, eyes red from crying. Uruno Sakura was having a major internal struggle. On one hand, she had loved Sasuke for years. Giving up friendship, self-respect and, in some cases, human decency to express this. Luckily, she had started calming down in recent months, from training with her crush and fighting difficult odds as a real shinobi. However, her love had disabled her and fled, betraying her and the village. Sasuke had been her focus for so long that Sakura had also offered to betray everything that she had worked for and treasured just to go along with him. On the other hand, she had Naruto. No one had really liked the kid growing up. Parents had told their children, or any child really, to avoid him since they were young. His constant fighting for her affection had stretched Sakura's last nerve and made her loathe his existence. And yet, Naruto, for all his loud boasts and annoyance, always seemed to protect his friends, fighting for them with everything that he had. Finding out that he had defeated Gaara instead of Sasuke really shouldn't have surprised her as much as it did. Naruto loved her, while Sasuke did not, but he was willing to fight with everything he had to ensure the Uchiha's return. And it had nearly gotten him killed. Sakura had been lucky enough to see Naruto and Sasuke being brought into the hospital as she waited for information on the mission. She had seen the damage to Sasuke's back and had nearly screamed until she saw Naruto. Bleeding Naruto, who wanted to be Hokage with all of his heart, missing a chunk of his right arm. It hurt to know that without his feelings for her, Naruto might not have fought as hard or as long. He might not have defeated Sasuke at such a horrible price. So Sakura sat and wept, waiting for word on her teammates. Wondering what she could say to Naruto to make his sacrifice worth some puppy love for a pathetic fangirl. Sakura. Looking up, she tried to stop her tears, but couldn't quite manage it. Giving up, Sakura smiled ironically. Hey Ino, are you sure of this? Danzu smirked at Hamura, reveling in the feeling of power. Positive. When Jiraiya and the container returned with Tsunade and Shizune, only an idiot would have missed their feelings for the brat. I just took the precaution of planning ahead for this sort of eventuality. The daimyo was kind enough to understand the situation and will support our removal of a ninja from the ranks over Tsunade's protests for the good of Konoha as a whole. Once removed from the protection of the military, we can have him killed without major consequence to the village. Seeing this, Tsunade will be left with no other recourse but to banish him. Nodding her head in agreement, Kaharu smiled lightly. Banishment can be released later if we decide that his power is needed. However, one child wandering the countryside will make a much better target than Konoha proper. We know that the Akatsuki won't need the Kyuubi for another 3 years. But if Uzumaki leaves the village, that will force them to waste time and resources to find him. Resources that they, and more importantly Itachi, cannot use against us. Amura sighed, although he also shared a small grin. It is too bad about the fact that even if he was accepted back, Uzumaki would remain simply a genin of Konoha. Advancement in 3 years without any major training would be nearly impossible and would put him in our power for a long time. It's not like the little fool could maintain a proper training program alone and on the run. Shaking her head in amusement, Kaharu sighed, as if the little idiot was ever actually going to become Hokage. Ha, what a simpleton. Shrugging, Danzu visibly savored the feelings of control. We'll just wait until Tsunade finishes her surgery. By then, her exhaustion and lack of information will ensure the maximum possibility of success. After all, what could she do with no warning and no immediate major political allies? Even the clans will hesitate to reject the will of the daimyo, and never for one little boy. Hinata ran, concern filling her every step and worry her every thought. 3 of the people closest to her had been hurt. Hiba, Niji, and Naruto had all gone on a major retrieval mission, but the reports that father had received worried her greatly. The opposing forces, rumored to have been instrumental in the 3rd Hokage's death, were protecting the Uchiha from any attempt at recovery. These were her friends out there, facing ninja of much greater rank and experience. Hinata had to find out if they were okay. Although the crying Sakura being comforted by Ino was not filling her with confidence. Sighing, Tsunade savored her sake while letting her bones settle and relax after a harrowing afternoon. That kid continued to surprise her. The cellular regeneration surgery had been difficult. While in a more vital location, Niji's injury was significantly smaller and cleaner. Naruto's arm was comprised of fused flesh, burned away with lightning and bleeding from several major arteries. An extremely delicate operation and almost impossible to complete. Luckily, Naruto embodied impossible. Once he recovered his power, Naruto's own naturally rapid regeneration should make up the difference. Apparently, healing one Chidori to the chest had maxed out most of his reserves. It was the secondary follow-up scan that concerned her. In several places, especially around the skull and neck, blockages appeared to have formed in a uniform pattern. When examined with a surface scan, nothing came up. But a more intrusive deep tissue scan, common in post-operation situations, had better results. It seemed that the stomach was not the only place that Naruto had seals in place. Someone or someone's had, over the course of years it appeared, placed several seals to block the kid's development. Jiraiya was still going over the construction of the matrix, but several different styles and patterns were in place. Some could easily be broken, others would break down naturally, more would require real effort, but in the end all would be removed. Cataloging them was taking time, but the signatures seemed stable enough to trace. Especially the faint Hyuga-style emblem in the left bicep. Or the one that seemed to have Sarutobi-sensei's signature in the right leg. Staring into the depths of her cup, the Hokage had to wonder. How many people heard you boasting Naruto and feared instead of laughed? Hokage-sama. Looking up at the Chunin that was replacing Shizune for the afternoon until her recovery was complete, Tsunade narrowed her eyes in irritation. Yes, what is it? Bound quickly to break eye contact, the young man shifted nervously. The honorable counselors are here to see you. Sighing, Tsunade wondered again what she was high on when accepting this job. He was quiet. Sakura, Hinata, and Ino shared that thought in eerie cinch. Naruto was recovering in the hospital bed, bandages wrapped around each limb and torso. His breathing was shallow, his heartbeat was slow, and his eyes were twitching rapidly. The sneaky blonde had been silent and still longer than at any other time within their collective memories. Something that scared the group more than they cared to admit. Sasuke wasn't worth this. Looking at Sakura in surprise, Ino tried to keep her voice down. It seemed wrong to shout right now. Sakura. What are you talking about? Shaking her head, the pinket fought off her tears once more. Sasuke betrayed everyone. Konoha, Kakashi-sensei, Naruto, me. He wasn't worth Naruto getting hurt so badly. Holding her head between her hands in frustration, Sakura suddenly felt drained. Even if I don't love him, Naruto deserves better than this, and if his promise to me resulted in any part of these injuries, how can I forgive myself for asking for his strength? Looking at the girl in front of her, Hinata knew she should be furious. The little, spoiled brat had begged Naruto to bring back Sasuke back and could be considered responsible for a lot of his pain. She had hit him, yelled at him, and used him, but Hinata pulled her into a hug. If she cried for Naruto, Sakura couldn't be all that bad. What is the meaning of this? Glaring down at the two old farts in front of her, Tsunade had to focus her temper carefully. One false move and the honorable counselors would become bloodstains on the floor. We are giving you an option, Tsunade. Either banish Uzumaki Naruto or we will have him eliminated. Eye twitching, Tsunade reminded herself to have the standards of mental health evaluations revised shortly. Clearly, these two had gone senile. On what charge? And I swear if you say injuring that little traitor. Shaking her head at the impertinence, Kaheru decided to cut to the chase. Actually, this is for the good of Konoha. Taking up where his partner had left off, Hamura stared down the angry Sannin calmly. But the successful retrieval of Uchiha Sasuke, we will continue to have resources tied up in countering Orochimaru's efforts to capture the boy. Although killing him would make our lives easier, Sasuke represents too much genetic potential to simply eliminate. Even stripped of his shinobi status, the Sharingan must remain in Konoha. Taking up the slack, Kaheru braved Tsunade's climbing temper. However, with the advent of Akatsuki, a second force that makes Orochimaru seem minor has come forth. They have already successfully infiltrated the village once, and we lack the resources to protect both elements. Clearly, we must take the path of least resistance. Rubbing her head in irritation, Tsunade promised to make that revision soon. And sending Naruto into the jaws of Akatsuki, fulfilling their objectives is better for Konoha. How exactly? Shrugging, Kaheru answered with ease. By dividing our enemies instead of unifying them. Orochimaru will obsess over the Uchiha, concentrating his attention here where we can deflect his efforts. However, Akatsuki will not need the Kyuubi for nearly 3 years. Years that they will waste resources searching for one boy in the elemental countries. Orochimaru shouldn't waste effort on Uzumaki due to fear of Akatsuki reprisal, so Naruto can wander freely, drawing their gaze from our walls. Amura broke in, hoping to leave in one piece. Now we can release the banishment later, but with Uzumaki out of the village, we have time and energy to rebuild and regroup. It really is for the best. Smash. Although stoic, it took their many years of training not to flinch at the atomized remnants of the Hokage's desk. So that's it. We just throw him away and destroy his career because it is convenient. Is that how Konoha ninja treat their comrades? Rolling her eyes at the dramatics, Kaheru sighed. Except that Uzumaki is not just a ninja, he is a Jinchuriki and as such, he is Konoha's sacrifice. Maybe we can spare some minor assets to reimburse him later, but Konoha is worth more than the efforts and issues of one little boy. Seeing that the blonde was about ready to shatter them instead of the furniture, Hamura decided to wrap things up. We have the support of the daimyo. It is either banishment or Naruto is cast out from the ninja program and dealt with permanently. We will give you 2 days to consider. Of course, we are not without some mercy. Nothing can be done until the boy is somewhat healthier. Good day. Leaving, both of the counselors smiled inside. This power was somewhat liberating. After all, the counselors ordering the Hokage was new and exciting territory. Something to consider for the future. Tsunade stared out upon Konoha, ignoring the remains of her desk and the Chunin secretary's attempts at bringing in more paperwork. What had happened to this place? The advisors' council had opposed Sarutobi-sensei for years in regards to Naruto. His notes and journals were very detailed in that respect. Yet she has the freaking hat for less than a month, and those two old farts managed to dictate terms to her. Since when has Konoha become a democracy? She was a military dictator and was supposed to order her people and ninja forces. Not the other way around. She didn't know how the council had managed to gain the daimyo's favor so quickly, but this move had been carefully made. Countering it directly could bring the village to its knees. Pausing for a moment, Tsunade thought over that statement again, this time more closely. Bring the village to its knees. She should care, why again? Naruto was the one who had brought her back against all odds. He had protected these ungrateful fools for over a decade, only to be abused and disregarded as trash. Heck, he defeated the Golden Uchiha after being the dead last of his graduating class, despite massive resistance. Even if his dreams seemed ludicrous and unreal, the kid clearly had the potential to follow in his father's footsteps. Although, Kushina would be proud at the disregard for personal safety he seemed to embody. The village had put block after block in his path to the tower, and he was slowly but surely knocking them down. Listening around town, it was clear that his reputation was growing, moving from fear and anger to respect and awe. The successful completion of this latest mission would only add to that impressive resume. This latest barrier though, this was going too far. Besides, if she let those old fossils get away with such moves now, they would turn her into a figurehead leader within a year. A statement had to be made, showing just why you didn't screw with the Hokage. Now what would be dramatic enough? She might need help for this one. You. Looking around the fifth stack of paperwork that he had been balancing on the floor, the Chunin sweated at the look in his leader's eye. Yes, Hokage-sama. Nodding in resolution, Tsunade gestured to the door in irritation. Drop that and get Jiraiya and Shizune to come here at once. I don't care what you have to do, but both of those ninja must be here within the hour. Yes, Hokage-sama. Rubbing his eyes in irritation, Jiraiya felt a major headache coming on. Why did he always hang around troublesome blondes? The ceiling matrix on Naruto was only partially translated, but he could guess the gist of the rest of it. Already, he had a mind to smash some of the village to bits with bunta. The bulk of the seals near the head were suppression seals, clearly made to prevent chakra from reaching the brain. At least 3 of them were from a Yamanaka, and another 2 looked like advanced Anbu-style designs for prisoners. Overtly, they could be argued as buffers to prevent the Kyuubi chakra from reaching the brain and possessing the boy. Of course, since the Kyuubi chakra was normally purified before reaching the mind by the existing seal, and the matrices were not calibrated to one another, most of the kid's mental development was consequently stunted. No wonder he only seemed to have natural brilliance when fighting at full power. That was the only time his mind was receiving enough energy to function near normal capacity. Of course, the fact that they had been in place for at least 6 to 8 years each and showed signs of slow degradation was not helping at all. 2 more of the seals looked like Uchiha genjutsu suppressors. They could be seared with a simple touch and often prevented any aptitude in genjutsu from being utilized by prisoners. Normally, this was accomplished by screwing with natural chakra control and mental image recognition and retrieval. Someone was obviously worried about the Kyuubi granting enhanced illusion abilities, just like the legend spoke of. These were old but powerful and might take at least an hour to fix each. 4 seals on the torso seemed fairly amateurish, probably Chunin level, and were a variation of the seals used on chakra weights. They absorbed Naruto's natural chakra and made movement seem limited, as if he was weighted down. However, the worst part of these seals seemed to be the lack of Kyuubi chakra infusing them. That seriously weakened the force protection against the Kyuubi and Naruto's defense against the fox. This was worry bad news, indeed. Most of the other seals were minor, designed to hinder coordination and movement in some way. Individually, they weren't more than nasty pranks really. But together, they could be hazardous to a person's health. If it wasn't for some really impressive muscle memory, he would be shocked that the kid could walk, let alone run and fight in any significant fashion. But the last 2. Those were each a piece of work. The Hyuga construct initially seemed like a minor avoidance seal. If Naruto was too close to a Hyuga of the main house, it would probably generate some odd feelings or sensations. Obviously, the old men of the family council didn't want Naruto getting too close to any of the Hyuga maidens or dealing with the clan in general. Not horribly evil on the face of it. If not for the fact that prolonged exposure to a main house Hyuga could result in pain or death with the right-hand seal. It was like a valve, energy would build behind it the closer Naruto and the Hyuga remained near one another. They stop hanging out and the energy bleeds within minutes. But if they stay too close, one motion and the energy bursts the valve, killing him instantly. He was just lucky that the cage bird seal would ground out around something like that, or Neji could have ended Naruto in the Chunin exam. The last one though? That was nearly unforgivable for a ninja to carry. The third had placed a seal brand on the kid's leg, probably since he was 3 years old. It was a locator used sometimes on high-risk prisoners to make tracking their movements easier. With the right knowledge and tools, these ninja could be tracked and observed at any time. No ninja with such a brand should be allowed on the front lines. The possibility of abuse, or worse, an enemy tracking the signal was too high. It was sheer luck the kid's natural reserves blanked most of the traces at this point. That would be the first to go, if he had anything to say about it. Jiraiya sighed as he headed towards the tower. Tsunade's summons was a nice break from the moral question this whole fiasco inspired. If he had stayed in Konoha to look after Naruto as his godfather, could he have prevented this abuse? Or would he have followed orders to place his own work in that mess? Shizune smiled at the tower in front of her. Long and productive days always put her in a better mood. For too many years, she had been forced to run, protecting the reputation and budget of her mistress as much as possible. Learning what medicine she could between drunken binges and gambling parties. All in all, being proactive and effective in her efforts was a nice change of pace. Plus Konoha was home, the place where her parents and uncle had lived and died for. What more could she ask for than protecting that special place? Although, taking out some frustration on the bloody little Uchiha had made her day. The patch-up order was simple, keep the subject alive, no more, no less. His back was going to be one massive scar, and a few ribs might have healed a little weak, but the kid would live. It was a shame about the strained hand ligaments damaging his potential to ever shape jutsu again though. Not that such action would be possible after the chakra suppressor seals Jiraiya had placed all over his body. Honestly, Sasuke would be lucky to ever see daylight after this was all settled. Normally, a traitor might have gotten a prison stay with potential re-enlistment in the civilian ranks if there were mitigating circumstances. For the last loyal member of a bloodline to seek out an S-class ninja who was a sworn enemy of the village, he was lucky to be breathing and a sperm donor. Smirking as she entered, Shizune wondered what sake she should pick up to celebrate this mission. No one screwed with her little brother figure. Blinking, Jiraiya twisted a finger in his left ear. Care to repeat that? I could have sworn I had something crazy in my ear. Smiling slightly, Tsunade gestured to the two seats in front of the ruined desk. That was mostly my reaction. Those old idiots are using him as bait to delay the Akatsuki, doing a piss-poor job of it to boot. They're worried about something and I'm not sure what. Sitting down, Shizune barely registered losing control of her legs in shock. But that's ridiculous. We don't simply throw our ninja away like that. They don't have that kind of authority. Biting her lip, she looked in her master's eyes, terrified. Do they? Shaking her head, Tsunade drank deeply from her sake bottle. On the face of it, no they do not. I'm the Hokage, and Naruto is a ninja under my command. All in all, it's fairly straightforward. However, those jerks aren't dumb enough to bluff the authority of the daimyo. Somehow, they are going to use that authority to override my control of the village. We cannot allow this. Snorting, Jiraiya rubbed his chin. Actually, I had an idea that might come in handy. Noting their focus was gained, the Toad Sage smirked. Before this whole fiasco started, I was planning on making the kid my apprentice. That could accomplish the same things that they claim banishment would. He'd be gone from the village, the Akatsuki would still be tracking him and avoiding Konoha, but he would be protected under my wing and retain his ninja status. What do you think? Turning to the window, Tsunade's next question derailed his good mood. Have you finished mapping the secondary seals, their functions, and who placed them? Deflating slightly, Jiraiya shifted in irritation. Yeah, there were at least 5 or 6 authors there. Primary purpose of each one was to limit him in some way. Suppressed intelligence, focus, chakra control, genjutsu ability, you name it, if it makes you a better ninja, they suppressed it. I've identified the Yamanaka, at least 2, Captain Level Anbu, 1 Chunin, the Hyuga, and Old Man Sarutobi. Gasping, Shizune looked at Jiraiya in shock. The third Hokage sealed Naruto. Not a suppressor seal, that would be bad enough. No, he used a tracking seal on a ninja in service. Not one of the smartest moves he ever made, that's for damn sure. Leaning back in her chair, Tsunade still refused to turn around. In your professional opinion, what would happen if these seals were released properly at this time? Looking out the window, Jiraiya felt slightly hollow. Well, he'd have a bunch more power. The Chunin badly limited his movement, the Yamanaka and Anbu limited his mind, and the Uchiha practically removed his genjutsu ability. Take off those limiters, and his physical and mental reserves, outside of the fox, would increase dramatically. However, he'd pretty much have to learn everything from scratch. All of his muscle memory was screwed up badly, and his control would be shot again. Frankly, even with the shadow clone jutsu, we're talking years of effort to rebuild everything here. Gradual removal wouldn't help much either, because he'd be stuck at the beginning with every lost seal. Honestly, in my opinion the whole matrix is a major fuber. Turning around, both Shizune and Jiraiya were shocked by the sad smile the blonde possessed. If it was anyone else, I would recommend they be removed from service. But if there is one thing that Naruto has shown, it's an ability to adapt. Blinking, Shizune looked over at Jiraiya. Wait, what did the Hyuga do? Hearing the description of that horrible seal, a plot began to form in Tsunade's mind. Well, I have to say Jiraiya, your plan has serious merit. It accomplishes everything that is necessary and might even be approved by those idiots. However, smacking her palm and fist together, Tsunade grinned. I don't think the message is strong enough. If Amura and Kaharu want to run out the reason I returned to this village, I think that they need to realize the consequences of their actions. Compromising this way puts them in a position of power, one that they really just don't have. Shizune suddenly felt a new chill. This wasn't the first time such a reaction had occurred. It usually preceded a loss at the gambling parlor. I want a list of the people who had the authority and the position to accomplish those seals. I then want them in front of torture and interrogation within the next few hours. Well, anyone still alive at least. Ibiki is preferred, but I'll take Anko in a pinch. Then, I want you to evaluate Naruto's physical recovery and remove said seals as defined by such. In the meantime there is much to be done, Shizune. Jumping to her feet, the brunette hugged Taunton in fear. Yes Tsunade-sama. I think it's time for another trip. But first, let's do some shopping. Groaning, Naruto tried to grab his head in pain. Only to bite back a curse. What the hell was wrong with his arm? Oh yeah, Sasuke. Naruto. Forcing his eyes open, the normally hyperactive blonde looked into the worried green eyes of his teammate. Sakura. Pairing up for the 100th time that day, the pinkette grabbed his left hand and sobbed. Naruto, why did you have to get so hurt? Wincing at the pressure, he tried to force a grin. Sakura-chan, I promised, didn't I? I brought him back, and that was a promise of a lifetime. Smiling despite herself, Sakura nodded sharply. Looking around, Naruto was surprised by the others in the room. Hinata-chan. What are you two doing here? Laughing uncomfortably, Ino scratched the back of her head. Well, I heard that Choji and Shikamaru were here after the mission, and… Eyes widening, Naruto tried without success to get up. Choji Shikamaru, what happened to everyone? Ano-kun. Everyone's fine. Looking over at Hinata, he pierced her with a sharp stare. Are you sure, Hinata-chan? Feeling lightheaded from the attention, the Hyuga heiress nodded rapidly. Niji and Kiba were hurt, but they are recovering with no problems. Choji was in bad shape, but recovered thanks to Tsunade-sama. Taking over, Ino flashed a bright smile. Shikamaru's just tired with a broken finger. Apparently, it was too troublesome to die out there. Also, Lee is recovering nicely after not only his operation, but some sort of engagement out there. Oh. And you're never going to believe what happened. The Suna Genin came and helped with the mission. Eyes widening, Naruto gaped at his fellow blonde. Wait, Gaara's here. Shivering slightly, Sakura nodded. Apparently, Tsunade-sama was worried about the mission and requested the backup from Suna. They volunteered to help for some reason. Shocking the group, Naruto smiled widely. Mama. I'm glad they came. They really aren't that bad once you get through to them. Shaking her head in exasperation, Sakura quirked an eyebrow. Naruto, what happened out there? Not something that you need to worry about, Haruno. Looking around, the room was shocked at the appearance of Jiraiya, larger than life and twice as imposing. Hey, Iro Sennin. What are you doing here? Glaring at the unwanted title, Jiraiya sighed, smirking slightly. Tsunade sent me. There are some things that she wants me to check over. You'll have to talk with your girlfriends later. Seeing his loss of composure, Sakura couldn't help but laugh at Naruto's expression. God, she had needed that. Don't worry, Naruto. We'll see you after checking in with the others. Leading the blushing Hinata and irritable Ino out of the room, Sakura left to check in on Lee. If Naruto could still be that silly, maybe things would work out in the end. Tsunade-sama. Browsing through the Jutsu scroll section in the Hokage vault, the blonde quirked an eyebrow, unknowingly mimicking Sakura's earlier action. Yes, Shizune. Shuffling under the piles of documents that her mistress seemed to be grabbing at random, the brunette winced. About Naruto's injuries. Picking up a black file, only to add it to the growing pile without looking, Tsunade nodded absently. What about them? How do you think that the seals were imprinted so deeply? That caused all movement to cease. Increasingly nervous, Shizune started to babble, a habit she thought broken at 12 after fighting off 20 mercenaries hired to retrieve a drunken and drugged slug Sannin. I mean, for them to be below the level that a surface scan would notice, they'd have to be practically imprinted on his organs. Shizune. Seeing her superior's cold eyes, she squeaked. I have my suspicions about how those particular injuries were acquired. If I am right though, I will probably end up killing someone. So let's wait until TNI is finished, okay? Gulping, Shizune could practically feel the temperature drop. Hi. Tsunade-sama. Smirking, she turned to the video depository. Now then, we have a few more files to review, but let's have a gander over here. I want to have a look at some special entertainment. Pausing on her way to the video-filled shelves, Tsunade almost seemed to pick up a black cylinder as an afterthought. Forming a couple of shadow clones to carry their research, Tsunade and Shizune began to head back to the office. Excuse me, Hokage-sama. Looking over at the bird-faced Anbu in front of the door, she impatiently cracked her neck. I'm in a bit of a hurry, Hawk. I'm sorry, Hokage-sama. But you still need to record your document retrieval before leaving. Security measures from the third. Sighing, Tsunade signed the log, adding a notation for one guest, and signed it with a bloody thumbprint. Looking over the order, you could feel Hawk's frown. I'm sorry, Hokage-sama, but you didn't give a listing for Urk. That, by the way, is the sound of a male being choked with one hand. Looking at him through the eyes of the mask, Tsunade glared. I'm the Hokage, I'm in a rush, these documents are sensitive, and thus their exact existence mustn't be confirmed. Yet you want me to form a paper trail with them? Perhaps that mask has started to cut circulation to your brain. Gulping, the Anbu proved his brilliance with the simple act of getting out of their way. Sauntering off, Tsunade gave him a smirk. Good boy. Hinata smiled happily, practically skipping on her trip home. Everyone was okay. Naruto-kun had talked to her. Someone had said they might be dating. Surely that meant she could talk with him without fainting. Entering her family's estate, the heiress was shocked by the running branch members gathering around the hallways. Everyone looked solemn and frightened, whispering harshly to one another. You got and did not to gossip lightly. Something bad must have happened. Spotting a member of her old protection detail, Hinata headed over to find out what had happened. Ah no, Kaori-san. What's going on? Looking down, a tall woman with blue-black hair held up with a hide noticed her old charge. For once, the child's nervousness did not irritate her, the emotion was all over the house at the moment. Hinata-sama, where have you been? You were expected back nearly an hour ago. Blushing at the chiding tone, Hinata visibly stopped herself from tapping her fingers. That particular habit always irritated Kaori badly, for some reason. Ano Niji's team was only cleared for visitors about 2 hours ago. Checking in with everyone took more time than I thought. There wasn't an event or dinner tonight, was there? Smiling lightly at her attitude, Kaori was thankful about the improved relations between the cousins. When Hinata was sent to the branch house, it would simplify things greatly to have a family member near her own age to explain the situation and lifestyle she would adapt. No Hinata-sama, nothing like that. It's just that, about 20 minutes ago, 5 Anbu arrived demanding the presence of Shinji-sama. They gave no reason or explanation, but the action has sent the Council of Elders into a rage. Hailing, Hinata thanked Kaori and hurried, "Hyuga don't run in their own house," to her room, bolting the door. Hyuga Shinji was 87, one of the most bigoted members of the main house, her personal tormentor since the age of 4, and one other important thing. Shinji was the primary seal master of the Hyuga clan. His hand had branded Hyuga in the cage bird seal for nearly 5 decades. Not one of his seals had ever been found to be flawed or imperfect, even by Hyuga standards. His very life was considered a treasure of the whole clan. If he had managed to cause trouble for the village significant enough to be imprisoned or even killed, it would take years for another seal master of his quality to be trained. Years that no one would be forced to bear that accursed seal. Hinata prepared to sleep, wondering if the kami would mind if she wished for his misfortune, if only just a little bit. The moon had long since risen in the sky before the quiet of the village was shattered by raucous laughter. Wahahahaha. I can't believe that little brat won the battle with a fart. Oh, that's too rich. Tuckling along with Tsunade, Shizune prepared to change the tape out for the next match, not noticing a blushing Hinata handing Naruto some special salve. Tsunade did though, and her thoughts continued to bubble. Everyone knew that the Chunin exams were a way of building relations between nations and showcasing strength. What most people didn't realize was the fact that all matches and interactions were carefully recorded and filed in the high-security vault. These recordings were vital to the continued security and development of the new generations of ninja, and an odd piece of data, once analyzed, could result in significant understanding of a village's strengths and weaknesses. Plus, they made a great diversion from depressing data. The files that Tsunade had seemingly picked up at random were mostly a front to acquire the black file. Compacted with special security and storage seals, it detailed operations that most of the continent was not even allowed to contemplate, let alone acknowledge. These were the dirtiest secrets documented by the Hokages and Anbu captains. The perfect place to find evidence of official sanction for the seals that Jiraiya had described. The good news was that no official sanction was recorded, meaning that the orders didn't come from Sarutobi. The bad news was that either the Anbu were acting independently to a significant degree or someone had a major thumb in the program's pie. Neither was a particularly wonderful prospect. The secondary stuff in the file, well, at least she had an idea as to who scared the advisors' council so bloody bad. Plus the name of a third conspirator. This was going to get messy. Luckily, she had a plan forming, she just needed some more bodies. However, Jiraiya was still unraveling the secondary seal matrix, so the main project couldn't start for a little bit. That didn't mean that she wouldn't make certain arrangements on her own. Hokage-sama. Sarutobi Asuma, Yuuhi Kurenai and Mitogai are here as ordered. Sealing up the black file, Tsunade had Shizune to turn off the TV. The next few minutes were going to be awkward with a capital A. Motioning the 3 Jonin in, she sighed deeply. This was going against her sensei's wishes, but she really didn't have a choice. Good evening, you 3. Hopefully, this will not take too long, but I might be calling upon your services extensively in the near future. So for the moment, prepare for a long stretch of on-site village duty. Nodding, the Jonin stayed calm and professional. Well, as calm as Guy got anyways. Although, they had to admit, the nature of her request was odd, especially considering the current state of the village. Now then, normally this would only require 2 Jonin level ninja of good standing. However, I wanted to make sure that there is no mistake in this, so everyone in this room will bear witness. Pulling out the black cylinder retrieved from the records vault, she ignored the shocked gazes of Asuma and Shizune. Guy and Kurenai looked clueless, however. Making eye contact with each participant, Tsunade carefully placed the cylinder on the desk. This is a security capsule. They are only used in very extreme situations, when containing documents that must never be lost. The security seals can only be undone by a Hokage and 2 high-level ninja. Normally, that would be assumed to be the advisors' council, however, they and I are having some issues at the moment and cannot be trusted with something so delicate, especially a black capsule. Nodding in resignation, Asuma sighed out a line of smoke. Black capsules are exclusive to the security of advanced Hokage documents, especially concerning issues of personal lineage and private techniques, right? So, who set this one up? Taking out a pair of scalpels, Tsunade pinned him with a look until the cigarette was gone. The 4th Hokage did. I believe, based upon the security stamp and location, that this record capsule was set up on the night of the Kyuubi attack. Well, I have theories, I want confirmation before mentioning them. Now, each of you must nick yourselves and add some blood to the top symbol. I'll seal it with my stamp and it should verify the authority. Begin. With practiced ease, each Jonin added a few drops of blood to the cylinder. Acting before the small puddle could dry, Tsunade sealed it with her stamp, activating the authorization. The small cylinder opened, releasing the contents. Most were pictures, with some official documents clipped together. Most prominent, however, was the birth certificate on top of the pile. Uzumaki Naruto's birth certificate, including his parents and an attached marriage certificate. Suddenly, the village pariah had become the legitimate son of the fourth Hokage. The air became rather heavy after that bit of news was confirmed. The knock on the door shattered the atmosphere rather quickly. Gathering the paperwork, the Hokage called out for the person to come in. The grim Ibiki and irritated Anko were not a sight anyone was looking forward to facing. Putting down a set of folders, Ibiki took a seat without waiting for an invitation. "Well, Hokage-sama. You are not going to like this." Sighing in relief, Jiraiya sat back in his chair, wiping the condensation from his forehead. "Phew, that makes 3 down, 8 to go." Looking at the prone form of his godson, he squared his shoulders. This was no time to take a break. Popping a soldier pill, Jiraiya began unraveling the second weight seal, picking apart the strands, one by one. Slowly, but surely, the small strokes of chakra-enhanced symbolism faded away, leaving a bloody but clear section of chest. All in all, this project was exhausting. Removing the tracking and Hyuga seals were relatively simple. Each was a foreign presence, designed to be rather unnoticeable and separate from his body. Sort of like a chocolate chip and some ice cream. It's a part of the dish, but easily scooped from the whole. But when you get into the seals attached to his potential, it was closer to removing the vanilla bean flavoring. These seals had been rooted in his chakra pathways for so long that untangling them felt along the lines of balancing an egg on a spoon, delicate, nerve-wracking, and beyond dangerous to the egg. Removing one of the bloody weight seals had already doubled the amount of power flowing through Naruto's chakra network. Another one made his wounds disappear to nothingness. Jiraiya might not be a medical ninja, but even he knew it was nuts. How the heck was Naruto walking with this much strength sealed up? Sighing, the Toad Sage cracked his knuckles and began to work again. The sooner he finished here, the sooner he could research at the hot springs. The headache that Tsunade had been nursing all morning had been going down with each proactive effort. The confirmation of Naruto's parentage was just icing on the cake, but the report from T&I was making that headache look like a simple hangover. You are telling me that, as near as you can tell, these idiots didn't coordinate their efforts. Shaking his head, Ibiki had to wonder if Tsunade would be willing to yell at prisoners in her spare time. That certainly was enough to scare him. Not exactly Hokage-sama. Most of the plans appear to have been formed after a meeting during the Kyuubi festival 9 years ago. The principals were drunk and complaining to one another about Uzumaki's ambitions of being Hokage. Of course, we have no Uchihas left to interview who might have known what happened, but those seem unrelated to the Anbu and Yamanaka efforts. Picking up a report, he skimmed the contents again to review the details. The principal figures from the Yamanaka were Kenshin and Jinzo. Kenshin was a chunin at the time of the Kyuubi attack, while Jinzo was Inoichi's pupil for about a year before joining Black Ops. Jinzo was killed in action against Sound, but Kenshin paints an interesting picture. A few months after the discussion, they were heading home from a bar when the sounds of a fight aroused their suspicions. Looking down an alley, Kenshin realized that a drunken civilian was beating up a child. Jinzo stopped his interference, saying it was the Kyuubi brat and that they should enjoy the show. They waited another 10 minutes until the principal attacker left the scene and made contact with Uzumaki. Seeing this as an opportunity, Kenshin knocked him out and put a memory inhibitor on the back of his skull. Not to be outdone, Jinzo put a reaction inhibitor over the first seal. Apparently, they had an argument over what to do next when, thinking about Inoichi's daughter entering the academy with a boy, they put a libido seal on top of that. At this point, an Anbu patrol was seen incoming and the two of them left quickly. They were never implicated until today. Shaking her head, Anko sighed. Unfortunately, no viable candidates for the Chunin-style weight seals seemed to stick out. The only major possibility was Mizuki, and he was killed months ago. However, the style is not distinct enough yet to determine an author. So, without interviewing the kid, we're pretty much out of luck on those. Flipping through the next transcripts, Ibiki noticed Anko's deepening scowl. She had not appreciated the initiative of the former Anbu captains. The most likely culprit for the first Anbu-style seal was the previous boar. However, he also was killed in action against Sound. His record was fairly clean until he was put on a guard detail for Uzumaki 5 years ago. It was noticed the boar was leading the kid into ambushes, so he was suspended for 6 months and reassigned to border duty. If there is any time span that the seal was placed, it would be then. The nature of the seal is something that Jiraiya is better qualified to explain. Tapping a file with a red flag, he calmly continued. However, Lion was fairly easy to find as the second culprit. He was forced to retire nearly 2 years ago due to stress, but the event occurred while he was in the mask. There are not a lot of seal masters of his caliber in the forces, and this had his fingerprints all over it. All we could get out of him was the seal was needed to stop the demon. On the surface, it looked like one of our restraining seals, meant to help break prisoners. However, the values are all off, making it twice as strong as is normally considered safe. He won't be talking again for a while. Rubbing her eyes in irritation, Tsunade really needed something stronger than Sake right now. What did you find out from the Hyuga? This time, Anko stepped forward. Obviously, it was taking everything she had to stop from breaking things. Or people. Oh, the little shit was a real piece of work. Seems like he noticed the Hinata chick checking out Uzumaki while training and got this twisted little idea. Starting to pace, Anko didn't quite notice how her voice was raised and her nostrils were flaring. No one really wanted to call her on it. He caught Uzumaki a few nights later and knocked him out with a Juken strike. Then, he inscribed the seal and runs, leaving the kid in the street. His first idea is to make Uzumaki associate the Hyuga with negative emotions, but his backup idea is the sick part. You see, he figured that if Hinata liked the kid, she might get close to him, and if that happened, she'd be in the perfect position to kill him. The silence was deafening. Cracking her neck, Tsunade pinched her nose in irritation. How exactly was she supposed to accomplish this? Grinning hollowly, Anko met the Hokage's gaze, ignoring the worried looks from her fellow jonin. She'd get close, start seducing him, and then, when no one was looking, use the right hand sign to induce a heart attack. Shinji-kun thought that threatening her with the caged bird seal early would be enough to gain her cooperation. Luckily, they never got close enough for him to initiate the plan. Closing her eyes, Tsunade calmly said, "No, you don't get to kill him, Anko." Noting the sudden pout, Tsunade let out a small grin. "We're going to do something much worse." Seeing that the reports were accepted, both Ibiki and Anko prepared to leave, only to be stopped by one final question. "I noticed that no one mentioned any sealing brushes and ink. Was there any particular reason for that?" Pausing briefly, Ibiki answered hoarsely. "Brushes and ink were not mentioned because they made the seals in his own blood, within the wounds, Hokage-sama." But that, the door shut with an air of finality. Slumping, the blonde felt twice her apparent age. "This is why I hate being right." Seeing the advent of rage in her apprentice's eyes, Tsunade decided to focus the emotions into something useful. "Shizune, I want the accounts of the Hyuga, the Uchiha, the Yamanaka, and both Anbu brought before me. It is my decision that financial restitution will have to be made at this time. Except for Shinji, he's getting something much worse." Nodding dully, the brunette left the room. Looking around at the tired jonin, it occurred to Tsunade that it had been a very long day and several things still needed to be done tomorrow. But first. "Kurenai, I saw your student present some medical cream to Naruto in the Chunin exam recordings. You wouldn't happen to have a sample, would you?" Blinking at the sudden change of subject, the Jinjutsu mistress reached into a pack and tossed a small bottle to the Hokage. "I'm not sure what she uses, but Hinata is actually quite good at this sort of thing. We practically bathe in the stuff after training." Testing a sample between her fingers, the blonde smiled at the quality. The idea that had been forming in the back of Tsunade's mind erupted in full force. "I would like you to bring Hinata with you tomorrow at about 8. Try to nab the Haruno too, if you can. I think I have a proposition for you." Nodding, Kurenai led the subdued and reflective Asuma and Guy out for the evening. They all agreed, alcohol was needed if any sleep was going to be found. Thinking about what she had learned, Tsunade decided there really wasn't any choice at all. Taking a pen, she began to write a series of orders to be ratified the next day. "I, Senju Tsunade the 5th Hokage, do hereby decree that Uzumaki Naruto is made Chunin on my authority. I, Senju Tsunade the 5th Hokage, do hereby decree that Uzumaki Naruto is made my second apprentice on my authority. I, Senju Tsunade the 5th Hokage, do hereby decree that Uzumaki Naruto is to be granted in financial restitution the sum of 2 million ryo from the Uchiha account for blatant attacks of violence on his person and attempts to sabotage his career. I, Senju Tsunade the 5th Hokage, do hereby decree that Uzumaki Naruto is to be granted in financial restitution the sum of 1,500,000 ryo from the account of one Yamanaka Kenshin for conspiracy to physically assault and inducing long-term injury. I, Senju Tsunade the 5th Hokage, do hereby decree that Uzumaki Naruto is to be granted in financial restitution the sum of 1,500,000 ryo from the estate of Yamanaka Jinzo for conspiracy to physically assault and inducing long-term injury. I, Senjutsu Nade the 5th Hokage, do hereby decree that Uzumaki Naruto is to be granted in financial restitution the sum of 3 million ryo from the account of Yuga Shinji for conspiracy to commit assault and murder. I, Senjutsu Nade the 5th Hokage, do hereby decree that, due to the abuse of authority that Yuga Shinji has committed, he shall be remanded to the Konoha mental health care facility for the remainder of his natural life. I, Senjutsu Nade the 5th Hokage, do hereby decree that, due to the abuse of authority that Yuga Shinji has committed, a full review of the cage bird seal be conducted and a method developed to remove it from the ninja forces in case this effort is repeated. I, Senjutsu Nade the 5th Hokage, do hereby decree that Uzumaki Naruto, due to health concerns, be released to the care of myself and Jonin Shizune for medical treatment and rehabilitation. To ensure maximum focus is given to the problem, both myself, Senjutsu Nade and Jonin Shizune, are to be released from all professional, legal, past, present and future obligations to Konoha for the duration of the treatment, which will be ongoing. I, Senjutsu Nade the 5th Hokage, do hereby decree that Jiraiya of the Sannin will be my replacement and temporary successor for the position of Hokage. He will not have the authority to issue Air Anchor S-rank missions for the first 6 months of my absence. Nor will he be able to modify or establish treaties with foreign powers. If my absence goes beyond 6 months, he is to be instated as the 6th Hokage with the privileges and responsibilities that entails. I, Senjutsu Nade the 5th Hokage, do hereby decree that the genin known as Uchiha Sasuke be permanently stripped of ninja rank and confined to the Anbu cell block, codenamed the Underworld for the duration of his natural life. Genetic samples may be taken and distributed to a maximum of 6 Kunoichi candidates and 6 civilian candidates. Samples will stop upon the completion of 21 successful pregnancies. No sexual intercourse is to be granted to Uchiha Sasuke for security reasons. Candidates will be reviewed by the acting Hokage and suitable clan heads. There would be more tomorrow, and she'd have to be careful of the order of sealing, but now the opening volley was set. Okay you old idiots, you want a war? Well, you sure as hell have got one. So this part ends here. Alright, that's it for today's video guys. Let me know in the comments section how was the story, and also don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I will meet you in another video. Bye bye.